Well, because it's Beyond Reason Radio, that means there is breaking news right before the show. Just an hour before the show, actually, this broke. A federal appeals court upheld Thursday a ruling blocking President Donald Trump's travel ban against 6 Muslim-majority countries. The 10-3 ruling from the Fourth Circuit of U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upholds a lower court's decision to halt core portions of the executive order indefinitely. The Trump administration says it plans to appeal to the Supreme Court. This is according to CNN, by the way. The Department of Justice will continue to vigorously defend the power and duty of the executive branch and to protect the people of the country from danger, and will seek review of this case in the United States Supreme Court. That's what Attorney General Jeff Sessions said in a statement. According to what they're saying here, the evidence in the record viewed from the standpoint of the reasonable observer says the executive order's primary purpose is religious. That's what the ruling says on this.
How can they read his mind? That's what I want to know.
Well, they're going back to his previous comments in the campaign where he wanted to ban all Muslims, and they say that is enough to know his motive to say that this is primarily a Muslim ban. Forget that it doesn't ban all Muslims. Forget what the law actually says.
Since when are people held accountable for political rhetoric during a campaign?
Now, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Only Trump, I guess. That was kind of one of the first thoughts I had. But, I mean, forget what the law actually says. Forget that it's not itself a Muslim ban. You know, even if Obama came out before his election, he didn't, but I'm saying if he did and said, I want to ban all guns, and then passed a law that only banned assault rifles, do you think these same courts would have said, well, he wanted to ban all guns, that was his true motive, so we're not going to let this stand?
I don't think so.
Probably not. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. And today is pretty beyond reason. If you want to call into the show, and I actually really would like your calls and texts today on what we're going to talk about, you can call 407-916-5400, text to 23680. We are on till 9 p.m. But of course, you can catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available if you miss any of the show. I'm going to get to what I really want you to comment on. But first, we have Mr. Tom Benson, who is producing. How are you, Tom?
I am fine. I was up early today, about 5 o'clock, and it was still muggy, murky, and cloudy, and it looked like it was going to be kind of a dismal day. Then when I went out again just before noon, it was a beautiful day, and now we're in store for some nice weather. It's going to be cool tonight, low down to 62.
Is it really?
Yeah. Open up the windows.
That makes me happy, especially since the air in my car doesn't work.
Yeah, well, join the club.
The air in your car doesn't work?
No, I went all last summer without air in the car.
Are you crazy?
Yeah.
You realize where we live.
I carried a nice bag with me and and sat on it.
That's actually a really good idea. I like that. So, the big story of the day, which is definitely beyond reason, is the fact that a politician in Montana, as you all know, body slammed, according to reports, according to some witnesses there.
Allegedly, yes.
Yeah, allegedly. There's some other... His campaign is saying that's not exactly what happened. The Fox News reporters, witnesses there, said that's exactly what happened, and we're going to play the audio in a second, and it sounds pretty much like that's what happened. I'm just saying it was Greg Gianforte, who I guess the election is actually today. And what's even more amazing to me, and more beyond reason to me about all of this, is not even just the event itself, which is pretty beyond reason. Although The Rock is running for president, so, maybe the wrestling could just be a part of politics now.
That's the way to...
I guess.
Yeah.
We'll just debate in steel cage matches.
There you go.
There you go. Forget actual words and ideas. We'll just beat each other up. So, so that's good. But the reaction is even more beyond reason because it's apparently all Donald Trump's fault. Did you know that, Tom Benson?
I'm not surprised.
It's all his fault. And this is the immediate reaction. I'm always amazed, one, the reaction itself, and then two, how fast people react to stuff like this. Like, immediately, this is the reaction from people. As of last night, like right after I had this happen, this was the reaction of people that, well, this is Donald Trump's fault. So there you go. I'm going to say it's safe to say that we should not body slam reporters. I know that could be an unpopular opinion among some of my listeners, and believe it or not, it is. I've actually looked on what some people that follow me and listen to the show have been saying on Facebook today, and they think it's okay to do this. I am not kidding. I just saw a post on that, actually, and
it wasn't even from one of our newspapers. It was from over there in England.
I'm going to say no, it's not okay to do this, and I guess I'm going to have to go back to the Bible. You know, the people that are saying this are Christians, so we're going to go back to the Bible and see what the Bible says about this, maybe. Maybe if you don't listen to me, maybe you'll listen to Jesus on this. But let's hear the audio again. I know most of you probably heard the audio, but this is the audio of the altercation between GN40 and the Guardian reporter, who, by the way, was just asking him about the CBO score. He wasn't even very combative about it. I mean, just listen to the audio here.
And we'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have the action
speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
I'm sick and tired of you guys. The last time that came here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You were the Guardian?
Yes, and you just broke my glasses.
The last guy did the same damn thing.
You just body slammed me and broke my glasses.
Get the hell out of here.
If you'd like me to get the hell out of here, I'd also like to call the police. Can I get you guys' names?
Hey, you gotta leave.
He just body slammed me.
You gotta leave.
So, you hear what happens. You hear him yelling at the reporter after it happened. You hear him say he just body slammed me. He's obviously shook a knuck. He did tweet a picture of his broken glasses. Witnesses there say that's pretty much what happened. You could tell he's obviously pretty angry. And all he did was ask very calmly about the CBO score. I'm going to say, no, you shouldn't body slam reporters. I mean, is this really a controversial subject? Apparently it is. Because I'm seeing people that are fans of mine on our side think this is perfectly okay. How can you say this? So here's my question for you tonight, if you're listening. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. One, do you think this is okay? Because it was just against a reporter and we just hate reporters now? Two, what if it was reversed? What if this was a Democrat and he body slammed a conservative reporter? Same exact situation, but it was a conservative reporter. Say it was a conservative reporter during the Obama administration asking about enforcement of illegal immigration, the DACA, that whole thing. And the reporter didn't want to answer it, so he just body slams him. Would you have the same opinion then? Would you be defending the politician then? I'm going to say probably not. But maybe you would if it was reversed. So 407-916-5400, text to 23680. Here's my thing on this. It's called we're in a civil society, in that we don't solve these kinds of things with violence. We can't yell at the left for blocking free speech on campuses with violence and then defend a Republican, for body slamming a reporter using violence to silence his free speech. We can't do that. Now I'm hearing, and I've been talking about this for a while, how this is what's happening. We have to fight fire with fire, I hear. The left is just so bad, we can't be virtuous ourselves, so we have to fight back. Bring on the war, is what I hear. Do you really want to do that? Maybe, just maybe, we should be better than them. Maybe that's how we could actually win the day and win the argument, is actually be better. Another question I have is, if this was Trump who did this, would you have defended him? I bet a lot of you probably would have. You know, I got a lot of flack during the campaign when the whole comments of Trump grabbing somebody's, that whole controversy, and I said, as Christians, why are we defending this? As Christians, we should not be defending this. I had a lot of people upset with me. You know, I had to get off my high horse. It's just locker room talk. I wasn't even telling them not to vote for him. I voted for him, but I was just saying we shouldn't be defending what he did and what he said. So I'm pretty sure we shouldn't be defending or saying, you know, doing what this guy said. So I guess I have to go back to the Bible. If you don't listen to me, listen to Jesus. I'm sure most of you have heard this verse from Matthew chapter 5, verse 38 through 40. It's a very important verse. Talks about, it's really a staple of our society here. Is it not? Here it is. You have heard that it was said, eye for an eye, and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. How can you read that by the words of Jesus and then defend what this guy did to this reporter? You can't. Now, this isn't about self-defense when Jesus talks about this. You know, when somebody hits you on the cheek, it's not going to kill you. You know, war, you could say, people will say, oh, we should never go to war or we should never defend ourselves. That's not what Jesus is saying here. What he's saying is when you react, when someone attacks you like that and you react, you are giving that power to the person attacking you. And when you just turn the other cheek, you take away that other person's power. Because you should, all your power, you should submit to God, basically, not to those who hate you. Because when you submit to those who hate you, when you don't forgive those who hate you, when you don't forgive those who do bad to you, even if you're annoyed by them, you're giving them power over you in a sense. And the only one who should have real power over you is God, is the point of that. But I think it's safe to say we shouldn't be assaulting reporters, especially when they just ask about a CBO score, a simple question. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. We have a call on this, of course. I thought we'd get a call on this. Let's go to James in Winter Park. James, how are you today?
I'm fine, Yaffee. How are you tonight?
Pretty good. What's up?
First, I have concerns over just trying to make a decision on the basis of the audio. The Fox News reporter who was the eyewitness has now retracted at least portions of her statement.
Where did you see that? I have not seen that. Where did you see that?
I believe it was on Rush Limbaugh and also on the news. I don't remember which news I was listening to. I keep the radio on most of the day.
Okay.
So, and I jump channels a little bit. So it was either your station or NPR.
Okay.
What can I say? But she has walked that back. The one thing about the eye for eye bit, that actually comes from the original Bible or Torah.
Yes, the Old Testament, yes.
Moses talking about actually limiting the amount of damage you've done or you're going to do to somebody.
Exactly, getting rid of revenge. It was placing law so he could get rid of revenge.
One of Israel's daughters was raped and stolen by a rival tribe, and they went in and killed the whole tribe. And that's when Moses came in and said, no, you don't do that sort of stuff. Limit it, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, anyway. So that is not an encouragement to have violence. Rather, it's an encouragement to scale back violence.
Right. And Jesus was just kind of confirming that point more. And that kind of goes in what we're saying, that in situations like this, in a civilized society, you don't have violence. You solve things civilly. And then if someone commits violence towards you or some kind of assault towards you, you go to the police and call the police. It's not about violence.
We'll get to that. The other thing is that we don't have video on this. And
right.
Whatever his name is, Greg Gianforte is saying, is that the guy was pushing his microphone into his face. And that brings up the legal concept or principle of what's known as fighting words. And even so much as sticking your finger in somebody's face can be a legitimate defense or affirmative defense against the actions that you take
and there's no
to
doubt
relieve yourself of the fighting words.
There's no doubt that the lawyers are
we
probably...
don't know what's going on. And I would just withhold judgment on the guy. One of those, since you brought up the Bible, judge not lest ye be judged. We're working on a half-truth or a half-knowledge here, and I just don't feel real comfortable condemning the guy.
What about the people who are applauding him, who think that he attacked a reporter? And I'm not just making blind judgments. The audio is pretty clear for the most part.
I heard some of those on Limbaugh today, and they were saying that if all the Republicans would do that, they'd bankrupt themselves and give the money to the Republicans, and that's just stupid.
Okay.
You don't have to go any further than that. That's just stupid. It's understandable if somebody feels he's being assaulted in the true sense of not having physical contact, but just having a threatening action or word. If he's being assaulted by somebody shoving a cell phone or microphone into his face after he's told them, that he'll deal with them later, you might have to cut the guy some slack. On the other hand, if none of that happened, then you don't have to cut the guy slack. So,
all right, James.
Without knowing,
I appreciate your call, James. It's going on forever. But I understand what you're saying. But even if someone shoves a microphone in my face, I'm not going to slam him to the ground or something. I'm sorry. It's just, especially if you're a politician, it's kind of part of the game. But I'm more reacting to the reaction to it. That I'm seeing people on our side who believe that he totally body slammed the reporter and are defending that action, which to me is no. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
So how about we just go back to duels? Is that what we want? The thing that killed Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr, eventually challenged him to a duel.
Pay-per-view.
Yeah, we'll make it into a whole pay-per-view thing. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you have disrespected my honor, sir, and we shall duel. I mean, come on, there's a reason why we don't do this stuff anymore. It's called being a civil society. But in terms of what the last caller said, that the reporter is changing her story, Laura Ingraham on her show interviewed the reporter. This is probably where he got this from. And the reporter changed it a little bit, not really. The reporter says, I'm the one who said that in terms of grabbing by the neck. I saw both his hands go up, not around his neck in a strangling type of way, but more just on each side of the neck. Just grabbed him, and I guess it could have been on his clothes. I don't know. Again, just to clarify, he didn't grab him by the neck with both hands in the way that was initially described. That's not quite accurate. No, it wasn't like he grabbed him around the neck. He had one hand on each side of his neck. But that doesn't really, that doesn't really change too much.
Was he grabbing at the clothes, perhaps, and trying to shove him out of his way?
Maybe, I guess that's what she's saying. It was still kind of the neck, and I think she's still confirming that he slammed her down. But even if he was just like grabbing by the clothes and shoving out of the way, that's still not something.
It's assault.
You should do. It's just not something, especially if you're a politician. And I guarantee you, if this was, what bothers me so much about this is partisan, I guarantee you if it was reversed, we would have been upset at the politician. If it was a Democrat who assaulted a conservative reporter on one of our issues like that, we would have been totally upset and, said this politician needs to resign. And this is typical of the left and Democrats not wanting to hear other points of view. That's what we would have said. But because it's reversed, and I will say this, there's a lot of conservatives and Republicans who are denouncing what this guy did. So it's not, I'm talking about just regular people I've seen react to this just on social media. But a lot of big names and a lot of Republicans out there they're not defending this. So I shouldn't be too hard on our side. Let's take a call here. Let's go to Jay in Altamont Springs. Jay, how are you?
I'm doing fine, and you?
Pretty good. What's up?
Yeah, I just got in my car and I jumped into here and I heard bits and pieces of the conversation, and I tend to agree that that he shouldn't have taken it that far. I don't know everything that's been going on, but from what I hear, it's to physically assault the reporter. That's just taking a step too far. Especially since he is a politician, he's a bit fair game. So he needs to, it sounds like he just needs to realize that this is the type of stuff that's going to happen all the time. Now, I don't agree that they should always be harassed, and I believe that the reporters should follow a better, I'm not sure how to call it, not code of ethics, but better way of behaving themselves.
I mean, and that's true in a lot of cases, but I don't really even see that here. The CBO score just came out. The election was the next day. This congressman apparently wasn't going to comment until the CBOs came out. So it just came out, so the reporter wanted to get his comment. I just don't see worth all the hassle of that.
Yeah. You also got to think, does it matter when this happened? I mean, whether it happened before or after, an election, or the whole point of the fact that he took it that far, to me, is just crossing the line.
I happen to agree with you, Jay. Let's go to a Carol in Melbourne. Carol, how are you?
I'm fine, Michael, but my problem is the reports that I heard at the beginning, they both differed greatly. The one that the guy, assaulted the reporter, it said that he grabbed his wrist trying to get that thing out of his hand.
That's what his campaign is using as a defense.
Well,
not the witnesses, his campaign.
Reporter. I wouldn't believe any reporter. I want two unbiased witnesses. And
there were multiple witnesses.
I would judge it. Pardon?
Well, for one, there were multiple witnesses outside the Fox reporter basically saying the same thing. But two, we have the audio.
Well, but again, if the man really did burst through the door and was shoving this thing in the guy's face, and he had been harassing him the night before.
Did you hear the audio? It wasn't really shoving.
I heard it. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying the guy had been at some meeting the night before, or his group that he was representing, Guardian, whoever that is, they were dogging this man.
So? He's a politician. We can't dog politicians now?
I can't take the side of the reporter until I get all the facts, and we don't have them yet.
Okay. I understand. I mean, I understand the whole we need all the facts thing. That's fine, especially if this becomes a legal matter. But I think if it was reversed, you wouldn't want all the facts. So the real craziness, Tom Mensa, what are you laughing in there about?
I'm not laughing. It's just that it came to mind that the sheriff, I think it was the sheriff or the local police officer,
sheriff.
He contributed to Gianforte's campaign.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
So there might be a conflict of interest there, too.
Yeah.
By the way, Gianforte is not from Montana. He's originally from the Philadelphia area. So, you got to stand up for you got to stand
that's it, huh?
Stand your ground.
Oh, man. So, despite even the conversation and actually what happened, the reaction, like I said, is more beyond reason than what actually happened. I mean, what probably actually happened is the guy got mad because a reporter was asking questions he didn't want to answer at the time, and he let the anger get the best of him, and he pushed him to the ground when he shouldn't have done it. This happens all the time in our country. It doesn't happen with politicians and reporters usually, but it happens in our country. And so that's probably, when you just a reasonable look at what happened, that's probably what happened. But of course, no. This is a reflection of our country. It's a reflection of Donald Trump is what it is. This is where we're going with this immediately. This is all Trump's fault.
It's another skirmish in our social civil war.
Yeah. I think the reaction is more of a skirmish in the Civil War than this actual incident. But we'll get to that. We'll hear what some of the left and reporters and everything are saying about this. It's pretty, well, beyond reason. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. The place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Orlando Smart Talk Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We've been talking about GN40, who attacked, or I guess defended himself, what some people are saying, you know. He basically slammed a reporter to the ground. He got upset. But we were talking about the incidents. We played the audio of that. It's been everywhere all day. The election is actually today. He might actually win because there was early voting, I guess, too. So, and, you know, people are going to say, well, we still have to have a Republican in there. And then you saw a report of Tom Benson of people in Minnesota. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
That's what I want in a politician. Violence.
My kind of politician.
It's just crazy. But did you know all of this was Trump's fault? Did y'all know that out there?
Yeah.
It's all Trump's fault. This is the narrative being thrown out there today that in the age of Trump, this is going to be the new normal.
Well, the other thing, too, is if it weren't Trump in the White House right now, you know whose fault it would be? Bush's fault.
Oh, of course.
It's got to be somebody. It's always somebody else other than...
who actually did it.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, actually. So let's go over some of the audio here. Joe Scarborough on MSNBC, and we have the audio here. Mr. Tom Benson. We have Joe Scarborough first. He talked about it this morning, and he said this is partly the responsibility in the age of Trump. It should be cut.
But that first story, isn't that incredible? A guy assaults a reporter, which I guess shouldn't be too surprising in an age of Trump, where he calls the press enemy of the people. These reckless words have consequences.
Okay, so Trump says the press is an enemy of the people. So that means it's Trump's fault that this happened. Okay, I don't remember Trump saying we should body slam reporters, but that's okay. Then we have Kristen Powers, CNN analyst who was on CNN, who directly said this was Trump's fault.
Isn't this possibly tied into the fact that we have a president that's constantly fomenting rage against reporters? I mean, is it possible that there's some connection here?
We have a country that doesn't trust reporting.
No, but it's at a different level than it's ever been. I mean, there's no comparison to the way it is today than even a year ago, frankly, the absolute rage towards reporters.
By the way, she's also a reporter for USA Today.
Yeah. So, and a lot of times this is when reporters are talking about this, they don't like the president criticizes them. So, of course, they're going to blame him for this because they're reporters. But I mean, it goes on. We have Nancy Pelosi. It's not just reporters and commentators saying this, but other politicians themselves. Nancy Pelosi said this guy is taking his cues directly from Trump.
This person who wants to be the one representative into the House of Representatives from Montana, be sort of a wannabe Trump, use language like that, treat people harshly like that. That's his model. Donald Trump's his model. And we've really got to say, come on, behave. That was outrageous.
The situation aside, whenever I hear her voice, I feel like I need to take a shower.
Behave, Tom Benson.
Yes, I know.
You're taking your cues from Trump. It's just everything is about. I've never seen so much news where everything is about Trump. It's very interesting. But this is the most amazing cut. This happened on Don Lemon's show, and Don Lemon is speaking, and you can just see. You hear the tone in his voice, but if you actually see the video, you just see his eyes, that it's of course it's Trump's fault. You didn't know? But he was talking to a guy by the name of Paris Dennard, who I'm not too familiar with him, and I guess he's a guest on, he's actually a black guy as well, a guest on Don Lemon's show, and they're talking about this. And the exchange is well beyond reason. Here it is.
And the question that you asked is, why is this happening right now? There's a hilarious movie called The Election, and where the candidate is doing he's saying crazy things, he's doing crazy things.
You don't think it's because a guy who's in office now has said very horrible things about reporters and has said that the reporters are the enemy of the American people?
No,
I think that has nothing to do with anything, that people feel that they can get away with it, because I don't believe that you actually believe that. There's no way you believe what you're saying if you don't think that's true.
Oh, he believes it.
Well, I didn't get a chance to say anything, but I will tell you now what I think, and that is that what we have right now is a groundswelling of people who are not being respectful, who are not acting civil, and people who are just saying things that are inappropriate. And people
after a country that is, hundreds of years old, where we don't have incidents like this for the most part, and all of a sudden we're having incidents like this now. You think it's just a coincidence?
No, I don't. I think if we go back and look at history, we can see that, especially in this country, we have had a lot of instances of violence with politicians and people going back and forth. But my point is this, Don. We have an issue going on right now where people think they can do anything with their fist and with their hands, like this candidate did, and we have people who think they can say anything that they want to as well. They are both wrong.
And you don't. Come on, Paris. You don't think it has anything to do with someone saying?
Don, if you're trying to make a connection or a correlation,
I'm not trying. I'm telling you, I am. I'm not trying. I'm just saying that I can't believe that you believe the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Because I do, and you clearly don't understand the words that are coming out of my mouth.
I do understand. I don't think. I know that you don't believe that.
Do not believe
you're obviously on television just saying that because you feel that you have to defend everything about this particular person in office. If you actually sit there,
what does Donald Trump have anything to do with what this candidate did? Let's hold this candidate for responsible.
They're the fake people back there. They're horrible people. They're the enemy of the American people. If you think that doesn't have anything to do with it, then you are sadly mistaken, my friend. Good night, everybody.
They call me sadly mistaken, but you're
right.
Wrong.
I just did. Thank you.
This poor guy. So this poor guy by the name of Paris, he's actually giving a pretty reasonable response. And I don't even know if he's a big fan of Donald Trump or whatever. You know, it's funny. Don Lemon was saying, you have to defend everything Donald Trump does. But, of course, they forget that Don Lemon has to attack
everything he does.
That Trump does.
Exactly.
You know, it goes both ways there.
Talk about leading questions and leading him into the narrative. If you don't agree,
he straight up said it was the narrative, too.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the poor guy was, for one, he was just trying to answer the question, give his opinion. And Don Lemon's like, and then he's like, you didn't even let me say anything.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't believe you don't actually believe that. What do you mean I don't actually believe that? What are you telling me about what I don't actually believe? And then he goes, this is new in history. And he's like, no, it's not. There have been times in our history where things have gotten, pretty violent. The Civil War, for instance, before the Civil War is a pretty good example of that. But this stuff happens. If you read some of the stuff that's happened in past conventions, in the early 1900s, some of it got pretty heated, got pretty violent. So, but I mean, yes, this is kind of a new thing now. And the poor guy was trying to make an argument that had both sides really need to act civilly towards each other more. They need to listen to each other. This is not the right way to react. We are so, whether it's with words or violence, we are just attacking each other now. This guy, Paris, was actually making a very reasonable comment, and poor Don Lemon wanted to make it all about Trump and how this is all Trump's fault. Have you all thought that maybe Trump is a reflection of our society and not a cause of what's going on? I think Trump did say a lot of crazy things in the campaign. He did say a lot of things he shouldn't have said. He has attacked reporters or whatever. But if you ever asked why and why he gets support for doing that, maybe it's a reflection of things like this where you're basically attacking a guy for trying to give a reasonable opinion. Or maybe it's a reflection on both sides just hating each other every day on social media and not listening to each other. Maybe Trump is just a reflection of what's going on in our society and isn't just the cause of everything bad. And maybe all of us need to maybe take a second and look at ourselves and say, hey, maybe we should be a little bit better. Especially the Christians out there. who say they're Christians and yet try to defend stuff like this. Of course, speaking of things that happen in history, let's take a little flashback here because there was actually an incident in 2010 where a Democrat practically assaulted a reporter. Well, it wasn't a reporter. It was like a student reporter who wanted to ask him questions. It was June 2010, North Carolina Congressman Bob Etheridge, a 7-term elected Democrat, was asked by a student reporter if he supported the Obama agenda. Here is the audio of that little exchange. It wasn't quite as violent as body slamming someone down or throwing them down or whatever, but it was still technically assault. And this was by a Democrat. I don't remember everyone blaming Obama for this. Here it is.
Hi, Congressman. How are you? Do you fully support the Obama agenda?
Who are you?
Who
are you?
He grabs him by the arm and grabs him by the shoulder.
I'm here for a project, sir. Tell me who you are.
We're just here for a project, sir.
Tell me who you are.
We're just here for a project.
I don't care about
please let go of my hand.
Tell me who you are.
I'm just a student, sir.
From. Tell me who
We're
you
just
are.
students. That's all we are.
I have a right to know who you are.
Sir, all we are is students.
So am I. Who are you? Who are you?
Please let go of my arm,
sir. Who are you?
Sir, please.
Congressman,
sir.
Please let go of me. Who are you?
Okay.
Who are you?
So, yeah, there it was. And he grabs him. And if you see the video, he's grabbing him. And this is just a student asking a simple question. And he says, "Who are you? Who are you?" And by the way,
that confrontation lasted twice as long as the Gianforte one.
Yeah, and you hear the guy saying, "Please let go of me. Please let go of me. You're not allowed to put your arms on me," which he's not. This is a Democrat, by the way. I'm not saying that Democrats are more likely to do this or anything. I'm just saying it happened, and yet Politico at the time defended it. This is what Politico reported at the time. Motives matter, and I think you can see who was behind this, said DNC spokesman Brad Woodhouse. This was a Republican Party tracking operation. If it wasn't a party tracker or intern, why is the face blurred and why is the source hidden? You know, if I had been a right-wing blog that identified themselves and they'd be looking this person on TV all day. Republicans know if they admit their involvement in this game of gotcha, it will undermine their credibility. 1 minute, this guy's interviewing a member of Congress on camera, and the next, a video was released with his face blurred out. If that doesn't tell you this is a Republican Party hatchet job, nothing will. So it's just a Republican Party hatchet job, you know, that video. Even though you can see the video, you can see exactly what the congressman's doing. It's just crazy. So, but you know what? I think that was Trump's fault, too. I mean, Trump wasn't even really around in politics back then, but I'm going to blame that on Trump. On Trump as well. In the next segment, I'll play a voice of reason, all this, and one of the voices of reason of the day. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio. Your safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
Yes, welcome to the show, everyone. It's been a fast hour so far. We've been on since 7 p.m. By the way, make sure to follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. I'm always doing some fun comments and stuff on Twitter, and you should send me a friend request on Facebook. Just search Michael Yaffee on Facebook, send me a friend request. I will accept it, or you can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. We are on Facebook Live as well. We're on until 9 p.m. tonight if you're listening to the live show on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. In the next hour, I want to talk a little bit about, we'll get in a little bit of politics and Beyond Reason politics. Trump, they say, is losing some of his base support. I'm a little skeptical of that, but we'll see. The other thing is I want to get into some of the stuff on Trump's budget, a little bit of a reality check on Trump's budget. We talked about that in a couple shows ago, and I actually looked at the numbers. But there's some more numbers out that I want to talk about that we'll look at, and we'll have another voice of reason. Neil Cavuto had a great little segment on his show about Trump's budget that I want to go through and play because it was really good. He'll be our voice of reason of the day in the second hour. So you want to make sure you stay with us through the whole show. And then, of course, we have things that made Yaffee Laffy is what we'll end the show with. But we'll end this hour with a voice of reason on this whole GN40 thing. And by the way, I'm guessing it's Montana, so the polls don't close for a while over there. But we'll see what happens. He still might win that election. We'll hear the arguments. He's the lesser of two evils.
I think they're 2 hours behind us.
Yeah, so it'll be a couple hours before we start getting the results in of that. So, but the voice of reason of the day on all this stuff is none other than actually Speaker Paul Ryan. He was asked about this in a press conference today, and this is what he had to say about it.
Well, first, let me just say, physical altercations there's never a call for physical altercations. There is no time where a physical altercation should occur with the press or with just between human beings. So that is wrong, and it should not have happened. Should the gentleman apologize? Yeah, I think he should apologize. I know he has his own version, and I'm sure he's going to have more to say, but there's no call for this, no matter what, under any circumstance. The people of the state of Montana are going to decide today who they will send to Congress.
If he wins, will you keep him?
If he wins, he has been chosen by the people of Montana, who their Congress is going to be. I'm going to let the people of Montana decide who they want as their representative. That's not our choice. That's the people of Montana who choose that.
So I thought that was a pretty reasonable comment. He was basically saying, he basically denounced it, saying there is no excuse for violence in any sort of situation. In that situation, it should not have happened. He was asked, will they seat him? I guess Congress is allowed not to seat him. They can do that. I don't know all of the details of that. I have to look that up. That's a possibility. I don't think they would do it. You would have a lot of pushback because, he's the voice of, that would be denouncing the voice of the people kind of thing. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot. This story is not over, but I figure I end this hour with some more Bible talk, with some more words from Jesus, because I think we need some words of Jesus here. From the same chapter I read earlier, chapter 5, Matthew chapter 5, says, "You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'You shall not murder.'" This is starting in verse 21. "And anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, 'Raka,' is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, 'You fool,' will be in the danger of the fire of hell." And what it says is, when you're angry in your heart, that's like committing murder against your heart. And then he says, "You have heard that it was says, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy,' but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect." Good advice from, the Son of God. I think we should all listen to today. All right, we're going to get into Trump's budget stuff and some more in the next hour. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back. So according to a new poll out by Fox News, by a 36-point margin, American voters consider Russia an enemy of the U.S. rather than an ally. In contrast, by a 53-point spread, most think President Trump sees it the other way around. The latest Fox News national poll asked voters to label a list of countries as either an ally or an enemy. North Korea, 93%. Iran, 80%. 20% of the people think Iran's an ally? What? Oh, dear. And Syria, 76%, are viewed as America's top 3 enemies. However, its fourth place, Russia, 64%, say he's an enemy. That has fallen the most out of favor with voters since 2013, the last time the question was asked on a Fox News poll. They ask the question every 4 years, I guess. Its enemy status is up 24 points from 4 years ago, when 47% consider Russia a friend and 40% a foe. The poll asked voters how they thought President Trump viewed the U.S. relationship with Russia. Nearly 3/4, 73%, believe the president sees it as an ally. Only 20% think Trump considers Russia an adversary. Among Trump voters, 39% say Russia is a friend, yet 59% think Trump sees it as one. Compared to those voters who backed Hillary in the election, just 17% see Russia as an ally, and 84% think that Trump does. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason. In a world that is beyond reason, we have a lot to get to in this hour. We're going to get into a lot of political stuff. I just wanted to start out. I just wanted to start out with that poll. You had actually shared it with me originally, Tom Benson. We have Tom Benson producing for me. What do you think about it, since you were the one who shared it with me?
Well, I really think as far as the sequence of enemies, I think the top two are real. Syria, I don't know if they're much of a threat to the United States at all. Of course, they eat up a lot of resources for us right now. But sure, definitely the wild card is North Korea and Iran. Boy, who knows what they're up to? You know, you just don't know what with those two.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say 93% are right when they say North Korea is an enemy. I'd like to talk to the 7% who think that they're an ally. I guess I don't know. Russia. See, this is the thing. I think I'm with them. I don't think Russia is our friend. Maybe they're not a direct enemy, but they definitely do not have the United States' best interest at heart. And Vladimir Putin is not a good guy. So I think it's safe to say that they are not our friend.
They're frenemies.
Frenemies. Yeah.
I mean, go back to World War II. We needed Stalin to
Well, and that's how people are sort of justifying Trump's policy towards them, that he thinks that having a better relationship with them will be better for the world. A little naive, I think, because Putin, I don't know if he really wants to have a better relationship for us. He just wants to push his agenda on us. But this is where a lot of the Russia stuff started when you think about it. You know, the collusion stuff was down the road, but it all started because during the campaign, Donald Trump kept saying all these positive things about Russia. And for one, it threw people off guard because it was a Republican saying this. But two, it just seemed kind of strange. So the Democrats and the left have gone crazy with that, run with it, and say, well, this must be some kind of proof of collusion. You know, it's amazing, too, with the whole collusion thing, where we forget what the collusion was. Apparently, what does that mean, collusion? What did they collude to do? I mean, basically what they're saying is Russia hacked into the DNC server, released emails that the DNC was pretty corrupt. And that was done by WikiLeaks, but Russia gave them the information. Mm-hmm. That's one thing we forget. But what would collusion have been?
Well, that's just it. No one knows. They're not saying.
Yeah, I mean, we hear collusion. We hear connection, but we don't really even understand what that means. What does that mean? Does that mean, what some have said is that the Trump campaign did certain things, held off certain things, or did certain campaign things in line with WikiLeaks releasing all this stuff, or the Trump campaign helped them release all of this stuff. But we don't really know, and as if they did, it would be bad, but is it illegal? It's just an interesting thing that I was thinking about the other day, how we keep hearing collusion, but we really don't even know what that means. What does that mean? You think Russia was going to not do this if Trump wasn't on board, or, we don't know. They don't know. They're trying to create a narrative, but a lot of that narrative was started by the fact that Trump was often defensive of Russia. And I had said that even in the campaign and after, that it worried me that Trump seemed to always be pretty defensive of Russia. Now, it could be just because he wants Russia to fight ISIS for us. It could be that he just likes strong leaders and Putin is a strong leader. Doesn't necessarily mean collusion, but I thought it was an interesting poll, and I would share that with you. So the thing I really want to start with this hour is the Trump budget. Because as you know, the Democrats are saying the sky is falling on the Trump budget. We've heard comments from different people saying the budget is inhumane. It's evil. It's an attack on the poor. And in fact, let me see. I remember, what did Elizabeth Warren? She said something similar to that. Oh, Elizabeth Warren said Trump's budget is manifestly cruel, is what she said about it. And so I thought I'd go give a little perspective on the budget. And this is all just proof that we are not serious about cutting the debt. We're not serious about it. Because this budget is still $4 trillion, over $4 trillion. Do we realize how much money that is? Not only that, but it continues to go up to $5.7 trillion by 2027, which is a $1.7 trillion increase over the next decade. You're telling me we can't run the government efficiently on $4 trillion? I think we can. There was a great piece in Investors Business Daily on it that was going over some of the numbers that I think give some perspective on this, looking at the individual programs. They say here, it is misleading to state that spending on Medicaid programs will be cut, as many did the morning it came out. The new budget proposes to increase federal Medicaid spending from $378 billion a year today to $524 billion a year in 2027. So it actually continues to go up for the next 10 years. $146 billion increase is somehow called a cut. It's only a cut in the rate of increase. And I've said this before, we don't even have to cut the budget. All we have to do is stop the automatic rate increases. And we can actually work to balance the budget. But like I said, there's no really interest in doing this, I guess. They figure we can just keep printing more money and it will have no effect on the overall economy. Trust me, when you have $20 trillion in debt, which is more than our GDP every year, that's going to have an effect on the economy because that affects the economy because it has to be paid back and it could cause inflation. And it does stuff with treasury bills and all that stuff that affect the overall economy. Not only that, but it has to be paid through taxes, which have to be taken out of the economy. Some of the other programs that continues on here that are similarly described as cuts will also increase. Consider, for example, the Department of Agriculture's child nutrition programs. The program had outlays of $23 billion in 2017, and President Trump has proposed for spending to rise to $34 billion in 2027. That's a 47% increase in 10 years. True, this is less than the $29 billion increase that Congress has allocated, but it's still an increase. Once again, it's just the increase in the rate of, it's just a cut of the rate of increase. It's not really a cut. But like everyone says, the sky is falling. Then consider the Department of Health and Human Services child support and family support programs, which Trump proposes to increase from $4 billion in 2017 to $5 billion in 2027, a 25% increase. Yes, $140 million has been trimmed from Congress's prior plans, but the program is still getting more funding. President Trump wants to increase funding from $61 billion in 2017 to $76 billion in 2027 for the Earned Income Tax Credit Program, which supplements incomes of low earners and is administered by the Internal Revenue Service. Yes, $1 billion is cut from the baseline, but spending is still rising. This goes on and on and on. This budget, while attacked for being too lean, keeps the high levels of government spending of the Obama years. Proposed government spending as a share of gross domestic product is projected to remain at 20% or above until 2022, when it dips slightly to 19.9%. Back in 1950, spending was 15% of GDP, and between 1997 and 2007, it did not reach 20%. So right now, under even Trump, it's 20% of GDP. That is more than the Clinton and Bush years. And yet, Trump's budget is against the poor, is against America. It's so absurd. It just tells me that we're not taking this seriously. When we can't even cut the rate of increase on some of these programs because we have to start balancing the budget and start paying down a $20 trillion debt, that tells me we are never, ever, ever going to solve this problem. It's going to be solved one way or another, though. We're either going to solve it or it's all going to collapse. Tom Benson, you got up to the microphone. You turned on your microphone. You got to say something.
I was just going to say that this, and the thing is, this is the starting point. Trump is the master of the art of the deal, and he's ready to negotiate. So this is his starting point. So it's not ever going to happen.
It's not going to happen. The Congress, we know that. It doesn't usually happen. I mean, when the president proposes a budget, usually it's not passed exactly the way it looks like. But
my point is, you're right. We're not going to take this seriously because look at the starting point. The starting point doesn't even come close. So what we're going to end up with is going to be even further away.
Yeah, I mean, you won't have to pay it back, Tom Benson, because you're older. But I'm probably my kids more are going to be the ones who have to pay this back. So that'll be fun. Oh, boy. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. I wanted to play the voice of reason of this hour on this subject, and we have a lot more to talk about. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We have Tom Benson producing. We've been talking about the Trump budget, which, yes, it has no chance of passing. But like I said, like most things in today's world, it's not even the actual thing that's beyond reason. It's the reaction to it. In the first hour, we talked about the whole body slamming of the reporter from the congressman, and I said what's even more beyond reason than the actual incident is the reaction to the incident. Well, Trump's budget is kind of the same way. It's not the actual budget that's beyond reason. In fact, most of the budget's actually pretty good, but it's the reaction to the budget that it just gets so beyond reason. The fact that we are going crazy. And trust me, just go on Twitter and hashtag Trump's budget and see what a lot of people on the left are saying about it. They're going crazy over something that increases spending by $1.7 trillion over 10 years. And that increases a lot of the programs that they like over 10 years. That all it's doing is cutting the rate of increase. And it does get rid of programs. It does cut a lot, but it's things you never heard of.
You talk about the reaction. I was not surprised, but I saw a reaction from Mayor de Blasio of New York City.
Oh, dear.
He said literally thousands of babies are going to die. And I couldn't figure out if he was talking about Trump's budget or Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, exactly right. I heard some audio this morning that apparently is out there of Planned Parenthood people talking about, abortions and what they do with the body parts after and stuff. There's apparently more stuff on that. I might have to get to that next week. It's pretty evil, I think, more than anything. But I wanted to play, speaking of the budget and everything, I wanted to play a voice of reason that I just happened to stumble across today, and it's Neil Cavuto from Fox News. I don't know if I think it was on his show on Fox News, not Fox Business. But he had a little monologue here on it, and Cavuto's the kind of guy who can say things, like a voice of reason. He's not loud. He's not angry. He's not shouting or anything. He just says it calmly and makes a lot of sense. And what he says is a lot of what I started the hour with, but I thought it was pretty good. So our voice of reason of this hour, Neil Cavuto, we're going to go through his monologue here. This is what he said.
By the way, the camera does add 50 pounds, just saying. But in the meantime, let's cut to the chase. Most of the budget, no cuts at all. That is, unless you think a cut is slowing the growth of something, because there's very little real cutting of anything. It's true, despite the fear that President Trump was gutting Medicaid. What if I told you he is increasing funding for Medicaid from $389 billion now to more than $500 billion 10 years from now? And that $389 billion, that is triple what we were spending on Medicaid back in 2000. Same with food stamps, a program in which we spent about $17 billion in 2000, more than $71 billion today. War, Social Security, disability insurance, $56 billion back in 2000, $144 billion today. Or let's step back and just look at this whole entire cruel, evil budget. At more than $4 trillion, it is the biggest budget ever submitted by any country ever in the history of Earth, of mankind.
Okay, stop right there. Have you ever really thought about it in that way? I think most people haven't. Because if you hear the Democrats, you think it's the most cruel and inhumane budget of all time. And he points out that it's still the biggest budget of all time, $4.1 trillion. It's more than ever, even under Obama. You tell me we can't fund the government with that much money? Of course we can. This whole thing is a joke. It's a joke. He continues on.
Over the next 10 years, it maps out spending of, are you sitting down? Well, of course you are. $55 trillion. You know what it is supposedly cutting? Nothing. Nothing at all. Because like I said, cutting is when you take a figure and reduce that to a lesser figure. No, this budget shaves the increase in spending over that 10-year period by about $3.5 trillion, $3.6 trillion to be exact, versus $55 trillion in total spending. So about 3.5%, a rounding error on a rounding error, and an increase in spending overall, just $3.6 trillion less in spending. But we didn't look at things that way.
Stop right there. The one thing I do want to say, kind of correct him a little bit, is there are cuts in the budget. Overall, it's not cutting because they're increasing spending, but there are programs that are being cut, that need to be cut, that are redundant, and most people have never even heard of, and the federal government shouldn't be involved in anyway. That being said, his point is well taken, that overall it is still increasing. This is, he continues on here.
Wait, did we? Do we? No. We call a budget of more than $4 trillion heartless, even though only 10 years ago, that same budget was $2.8 trillion. Look at it another way. These programs I mentioned have been growing at a nearly 10% clip year in and year out. Nothing stops it. Have you been getting 10% pay increases year in and year out? I didn't think so. You see, that's the problem. This kind of spending is not sustainable. At the rate we are going, we are worth as a country now getting dwarfed by all we owe in this country. That is called financial Armageddon, my friends. We owe more than we have. It's never happened. And we're closer to it than you think. And those who say it won't happen because we can print money are missing the point. Printing money only makes the tough choices harder to make. That's why I think the whole budget should be examined. It's not a matter of taxing too much in this country, but spending too much in this country. After all, Washington takes in more than $3.5 trillion in taxes each year. Goes up every year. Surely we can make do on $3.5 trillion every year. But it is considered heartless to look after the folks paying the bills. You know what I think is heartless? Forgetting the fact that they are. But I'll be very calm and composed.
So I think he's exactly right. His points are well taken. The fact is, this is still the biggest budget in the history of mankind. It still increases spending by a lot. It's still not taking this debt seriously. It's not. But I might actually have the solution. A story I just happened to read just now. I might actually have the solution to all our debt and economic problems, Tom Benson. You'll be surprised to hear what it is. But let's take a call here. Let's go to John in Lake Mary. John, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Really enjoy your show.
Thanks, man.
I've called before, but anyway, the comment, I heard this from a buddy of mine who worked for a REIT, and now he works for a hedge fund in New York, and he made the comment that, he thinks it's purposeful, and he's really a flaming liberal, but he thinks it's purposeful that nobody's really going to take it serious because the cost of the debt service, that there really will be no cuts, because if we cut and the cost of our servicing the debt somehow goes up, either we lose, control of the dollar, the ability to print, or whatever else, that we have to artificially keep those interest rates down. And he thinks, all it's going to take.
They're already keeping them artificially down, but go ahead.
Right. That's correct. And that's purposeful to keep us, because if those spiral upward, then what ends up happening is that the debt service becomes unserviceable. And then consequently, what happens is we're unable to make those payments. And then,
right.
We live in a social, a loose social contract where we have all these people, these entitlements. They don't start getting their money and, entitlements or whatever else, then, things start breaking down real quick. So it's probably, but so I don't think his point was he didn't think Republicans nor Democrats will ever get serious because we're in such straits that we have to do these, accounting gymnastics. It's not an easy solution. And, so we're at a point where we have to artificially give, this quantitative easing where they're just printing money, keep the money supply.
Well, I understand what you're saying, that in terms of we have to do quantitative easing, we have to keep the interest rates artificially low, which is really done by the Federal Reserve in order to pay this back. And that's probably a big reason why they're keeping they're keeping stuff artificially low. But I don't know how cutting spending would really affect that. They could still keep the interest rates artificially low even if they cut spending, could they not?
Well, I say you constrict the money supply, and say you make deep cuts to the third rails and to defense spending, which our outlays are just huge, and you have layoffs and money starts becoming tight, and the greatest debtor are not China and Japan, it's the Social Security Administration, the trust. Most of the debt is owned by ourselves.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The thing is, once those people don't get paid and there becomes social unrest, and I'm not being conspiratorial, but I think they see tea leaves and they're like, we have to keep I could be wrong, and he floated that and it just makes sense. So I think that they don't cut jobs because you start having unemployment go crazy, and then outlays are having to be spent.
Well, yeah, John, I appreciate your call. I understand where you're going with that. That kind of has to go with the fact that the government spending is what creates all these jobs. And there's no doubt that cutting the government programs and cutting the government spending would dislocate a lot of people in government-type jobs and these jobs funded by the government. But it would also help the rest of the economy grow, so they would be able to find other jobs. A little bit of a complicated subject there, get a little lost in the weeds with that. But I appreciate your call. But I have the solution, actually, to all of our money problems in this country. And we'll get to that next. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
So I have the solution to all of our economic problems. You ready? Ready for this? Could work. Could be what solves everything. According to NASA, apparently they are almost ready to start exploring a local asteroid. NASA scientists are outdoing themselves yet again by reworking the planned route for a robotic mission to a giant asteroid. Guess how much they are saying or estimating that asteroid would be worth? Only $10,000 quadrillion.
Oh, wow.
10,000 quadrillion dollars. That is, of course, if you could successfully tow it into orbit and then mine it.
Well, let me just say that my MasterCard is tapped out. I can't help here.
Well, what it's saying is we could start exploring like asteroids and so forth and mine it, and it would be worth a lot of money.
Because of all the minerals and what have you? That's
and sell it. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't that solve all of our debt problems? If we went out and mined an asteroid and it was worth $10 quadrillion?
Good luck on that one.
I think. See, you don't like my plan.
I like your plan.
You don't like my plan.
I don't see how it's feasible.
Save you. I have a plan now to save the world economy and our own economy and the debt problem. And you're discounting it, Tom Benson. Fine. I guess I won't run for president. I guess I won't run for president on that mantra. That won't be my campaign slogan. Let's mine the asteroid. I wonder how long till Trump uses this, actually. I have the solution. Let's mine the asteroid. All right, so speaking of Trump, there was an interesting piece in 538.com today that said this. And it goes a little bit with what I was talking about yesterday. Ben Shapiro had a piece in the National Review that I talked about yesterday, that he believes that the anti-Trump agenda out there by the Democrats is actually going to help them. That the Republicans should be worried that the Democrats have a real chance of retaking Congress by using this anti-Trump drumbeat over and over and over again. This is going a little bit in that direction. It says Donald Trump's base is shrinking. Now, with Trump supporters I talk to a lot, they would say no. Although some of them say that if he doesn't build the wall, then they'll lose his support. So the diehard Trump supporters are upset he's not building the wall, while other people are upset at other things. But according to this story, it says a widely held tenet of the current conventional wisdom is that while President Trump might not be popular overall, he has a high floor on his support. Trump's sizable, enthusiastic base, perhaps 35 to 40% of the country, won't abandon him anytime soon, the theory goes. And they don't necessarily care about some of the controversies that the mainstream media treats as game-changing developments. What was Trump's comments during the campaign, that he could shoot someone in the street and they would still support him?
Cheer. Yeah.
Something like that. I mean, with the whole body slamming thing today and what I've seen, that might actually be true. It says, according to the story, it says, it's an entirely reasonable theory. We live in a highly partisan epoch, and voters are usually loyal to politicians from their party. Trump endured a lot of turbulence in the general election, but stuck it out to win the Electoral College. The media doesn't always guess right about which stories will resonate with voters. But the article continues on here. It says, but the theory isn't supported by evidence. To the contrary, Trump's base seems to be eroding. There's been a considerable decline in the number of Americans who strongly approve of Trump, from a peak of around 30% in February to just 21 or 22% of the electorate now. Far from having unconditional love from his base, Trump has already lost almost a third of his strong support, is what this is saying. And voters who strongly disapprove of Trump outnumber those who strongly approve of him by about a 2-to-1 ratio, which could presage an enthusiasm gap that works against Trump at the midterms. The data suggests in particular that the GOP's initial attempt and failure in March to pass its unpopular health care bill may have cost Trump with his core supporters. That's exactly what I said, by the way, that he was losing approval, but he was losing approval from Republicans, and it wasn't because of Russia or anything. It was because the whole health care debacle, that they wanted that to be repealed. They wanted Obamacare to be repealed. These estimates come from the collection of polls, 538's approval ratings tracker, So, the share of Americans who somewhat approve of Trump's performance has actually increased slightly, which is interesting. That kind of goes a little bit different. However, from about 16% in early February to 17.9% as of Thursday. Here is my take on all of this, similar to what I said yesterday on the Ben Shapiro thing. I have decided, just as a rule now, ever since the election, and really the primary in general, because I remember there were so many things in the primary that everyone thought was going to kill Trump's chances.
Mm-hmm.
Remember?
Oh, yeah.
It was his comments about McCain not being a war hero. Then it was his comments on, the Muslim ban. That was one thing. Things he was saying about reporters, things he was saying about other candidates.
Look at the Billy Bush controversy.
And then that was the big one near the end, the Billy Bush controversy. They thought that was going to be the nail in the coffin. Yet, despite all this in the primary and then in the general election, and then they looked at all the polls and they looked at the state polls and they said, there's no way this guy can win. And then what happens? He wins. In the primaries, from the beginning, there's no way this guy can win. What happens? He wins. The point I want to make, and I was one of these people who thought he wasn't going to win. I was one of them. So I understand that point of view, but I decided after the election to kind of do a little bit of a reflection and kind of look at things and say, you know what? I'm no longer going to underestimate this guy. And it's really not about him, underestimating him and his strategy or anything like that. What I mean is I was no longer going to underestimate his appeal. And I still talk to people who, I talk to people who hate Trump, but they always hated Trump and didn't vote for him. So they still hate Trump. That's not exactly the biggest surprise in the world. But I talk to regular, everyday people who, even some who were not big Trump supporters in the primary, who still strongly support him and still like what he's doing. And they like the fact that he's unconventional. And it goes with the whole outsider thing. That was the number one thing, by the way, I heard in the primaries in the election from people. He's not bought, he's an outsider. He's not bought. Every time I'd hear from Trump supporters, that was the number one thing I heard all the time. He's not bought, he's an outsider. A lot of what he's doing is radical. Some of it's incompetent, frankly. It's not the usual politics. It's brash. But when I talk to regular people about it, they often say, I like it because he's an outsider. It's that same appeal that he had in the election.
And he stood up in front of the NATO allies today and said, you got to pay more money here. You got to come across with more cash. To their face, he says this.
And maybe some of the politicos don't like that. But the regular average American, which I think a lot of people who have the look at this stuff and they say Trump's going to lose and all this stuff, they're not looking at the average American, middle-class American.
You're right. The politicos would say that's not being diplomatic. But the average, everyday Joe guy doesn't care about being diplomatic.
Yeah, they just want someone to get things done, so to speak. And I'm not saying there isn't things Trump could do that would ruin things, like if he really doesn't start to make an effort to build a wall, if he doesn't get tax reform passed, if health care reform never gets passed, those kind of things will hurt him. But he's just a different animal. There is an appeal to him when I say that, someone texted me Hillary lost. I know. Did I say Hillary won by mistake? I don't remember saying that. Of course, Trump won after all this. The thing is, when I go back to things Trump is doing, there's certain things I see that I know will appeal to a lot of people. One, when he talks about supporting police, he's been very strong on that. And you see these just little reports out there of him supporting cops, and there was the Cop Appreciation Week, and I'll say things. I know that the average American sees that, and they're tired of the anti-cop rhetoric, and they like that. Then there's little things he does, like when he goes out and visits wounded vets, or he goes out to the funeral ceremony of the one who was killed, the Navy SEAL who was killed. Or he does these speeches in front of the military and constantly talks about how he supports the military. That kind of stuff, when you ask the regular middle class, flyover country American, they like that.
Because, for one thing, they're probably more likely to have servicemen and women in their families serving at that moment.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. And, the military likes that. They like to appreciate. So little things like that, I think there's an appeal there. And I'm not saying the Democrats aren't going to make gains. I think they probably will make gains. But I don't, and the Republicans should be aware of that. But that happens almost every presidency. That being said, I've just decided, and maybe this is just an intuition, gut feeling kind of thing, I just decided to take a step back and maybe just for once not underestimate Trump. Because, like, for instance, he had the worst couple weeks ever in his presidency. Then he goes on a foreign trip, and then he talks tough on terror. He looks very presidential. He does what he did with NATO today and everything. And all of a sudden, he's sort of back on top. Maybe not completely on top, but he's looking a lot better. And a lot of the Russia stuff, even though CNN and MSNBC want to talk about it every 5 seconds, a lot of that's not as big of a story as it was. And I say that because that's why I say don't underestimate his appeal. Let's take a step back. Don't let your never Trumper side get involved in you. And just kind of look at the big picture, I think. There were a lot of people who voted for him in the general election that voted for him because they didn't like the alternative. There's no doubt. There was a lot of reluctance involved in it. But I also think there's a lot of people that still will give him the benefit of the doubt. And remember, in a lot of these local elections, and even the next presidential election, it's not, you don't have to be the best candidate ever. You just have to be better than the other guy. So in a lot of these local elections especially, they just have to be better than the other guy. And if Trump in 2020, he just has to be better than the other guy to win. So a little perspective on that. Okay, we're going to end the show with things that made Yaffee laughy. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. It's been a jam-packed show. We've been on since 7 p.m. If you missed any of the show, I will post the podcast of the show shortly after the show, after 9 p.m. Just go to BeyondReasonRadio.com or download the Beyond Reason Radio app, or you can get it on iHeartRadio, anywhere podcasts are available. But it's time to end the show once again with the usual. Yes, it's something that made a Yaffee laughy. Everybody's favorite segment of the show.
He sounds so much like Vincent Price.
Okay.
Evil. An evil laugh,
Yes, it's true. That's what I wanted. Anyway, this story is something else. Here's the headline. I found this from the freebeacon.com, Washington Free Beacon. The Penis Causes Climate Change hoax paper was edited and improved by 2 people. There was a paper out there that was peer-reviewed by some scientists, apparently, that claimed that penises, male body parts, caused climate change. It turned out that the people who wrote this paper revealed it was a total hoax. They wrote it as a joke, showing how the climate change narrative is a complete joke. The academic paper claimed that this male body part caused climate change was reviewed and approved with no changes by 2 peer reviewers at a scientific journal. Cogent Social Sciences has updated the article, and after its authors revealed it was a hoax, the paper claimed the primary male sex organ is problematic, prevents significant problems for gender identity, yes, and causes climate change. The authors Academics who use pseudonyms to publish the paper put the word males in square quotes and claimed there are many women who have penises on the first page. They said they made their observations by searching trending hashtags on Twitter. Then it also said, this is a complete hoax, and people bought into it, because it's climate change. At best, climate change is genuinely an example of hyper-patriarchal society, metaphorically man-spreading into the global ecosystem. Yes. The paper's title still appears on the homepage of the Cogent Social Sciences website, but the high-quality peer-reviewed journal had to update the article after discovering the paper was a hoax. He says, we understand the author's intention was to question the field of gender studies, and the fact it came to be published in one of our journals is disappointing and has led us to conduct a thorough investigation. You just got duped. That's all it is, because you're gullible about this stuff. It's the only thing that happened. The article was received by a senior editor and sent out for peer review as is standard. The Cogent Social Sciences said 2 reviewers agreed to review the paper, and it was accepted with no changes by one reviewer and with minor amends by the other. Oh, man. It's just funny. And there was another story out there, speaking of climate change, that made me laugh as well. That was more made me say for crying out loud. There was a story in Bloomberg about climate change, and this was the headline, Tom Benson. How do you save the Statue of Liberty from drowning?
I think I saw a cartoon on this. You put it on stilts.
No, that's their cartoon.
Oh, okay.
That's their cartoon as a part of this legitimate story about how we need to save the Statue of Liberty from drowning because of climate change. Are these people insane? Says Lady Liberty is a towering symbol of our national vulnerability to the changing planet. And it actually comes up with ideas on what we need to do to save the Statue of Liberty from drowning. The Statue of Liberty is not drowning. Oh, dear God. I hope maybe this article was a hoax as well. I hope so. I thank you all for joining me today. It's been a great show. Make sure to check out the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. Send me a friend request on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. And, well, have a good weekend, and I'll catch you guys next time.